The Sig P322 was a hot seller when it first came out a few months ago. They were going for outrageously high prices when the gun first came out, but that's kind of typical these days. I finally got my hands on one. My local FFL, Ann Arbor Arms, managed to get several of them in. Most of them were spoken for. They did set one aside for me. I bought it, and here it is. I have shot this gun a lot. Actually, my grandkids have shot it. A bunch of other folks have shot this one, and it actually may have even... Well, no, that's a spoiler alert. We won't get into that. I did do a side-by-side, though, a little bit later. You'll see the footage in this video with the Taurus TX22 competition, which is certainly a perennial favorite. That was on loan from my friend John Swarthout, and I thank him for that. I also have some issues, I won't say issues, but some concerns with the installation of the optic and the factory optic cut on this. And rather than bore you with that almost 4 minutes of video, I'm going to save that to the very end. You can get to that if you would like. It'll be a separate an end to this video. Meanwhile, stay with me. So the question is the Sig P322 a home run, or is it a swing and a miss, or something in between? And I'll offer my opinion at the end. I'm sure you've seen enough of the reviews of the 322 to know all the stats and statistics and specifics about the gun. You know that it's they come with two 20-round magazines, as opposed to the Taurus coming with, what, a 16-round mag, and of course then the Glock coming with a 10-round magazine. We won't even go there. You know that it's optics ready, but you also know that when you put the optic on, you lose the rear sight plate, so you don't have anything co-witnessing on them. But hey, it's a Field 22, so it's probably okay. You know that it does have an optional included curved trigger shoe if you wish to take off the straight trigger, which, by the way, I like, and by the way, that cleanly breaks at about 3.5 pounds. It's a nice trigger. But you can fairly easily change the trigger shoe on this. Sig did a video on how to do that, so I'm not going to go into that here. And you know that there is a threaded barrel adapter, so you can run a suppressor or you can run a compensator on it, whatever you'd like at the end of this particular gun. So I'm not going to go into all the details. You also may or may not know that this, by the way, is a hammer-fired gun. And of course, you see the magazines are out. There's nothing in it. Nothing in the chamber, nothing here. So we'll pop it apart real quick here. And the takedown lever is kind of opposite of many. And once you've got the takedown lever up, you actually pull back on the slide a little farther. Comes off the front, which is also kind of typical of fixed barrel guns. But you can see here is a hammer, and I'm not going to let the hammer go springing up, but you can see that, let's see, you've got the takedown lever down and press the trigger, and you can see the hammer does come up and then hits the firing pin inside the slide. So it's hammer fired, not striker fired, even though there's no external indication. I'm going to put the lever up. There's no external indication of that hammer. And we've got a comparison between this and the TX322. Again, we'll roll that footage a little bit later, and we'll get into more specifics there. Interesting thing that I found is the owner's manual is fairly thin, but it's all warnings. 23 pages of warnings in here, and there's a QR code on the front. Scan that code, and you can then download the owner's manual. So everybody's getting away from actually furnishing paper owner's manuals. Maybe that's how they keep the price down. One thing that I haven't seen covered too much, and we're going to roll shooting footage and again comparison footage in a few minutes, but one thing I haven't seen too much is some information about the 22 mag. Some people have some problems with the way this gun shoots, and or rather the reliability of it, but it's, to me it's a mag issue. And again, 20 round mag, it gets a little tough when you get toward the end, but the way I load it is pull it down just enough to drop in around, let it go all the way up. Pull it down, drop it around, let it go all the way up. And you can do that for the first 18 rounds. However, with the included loader, you can't get the last 2 rounds in. So those have to be loaded pretty much like a regular magazine. Pull down the follower, push the round in, and that 20th round does take a little bit of effort to get in, but you can get 20 in there, just only 18 using the included factory loader. I did experience a few misfires of this gun. It's not really that unusual with 22 ammunition, just because of the priming compound in the rim, particularly in the less expensive ammunition. There's not as much care into making sure that priming compound is evenly distributed. And I had some light primer strikes, particularly with Aguila ammunition. I didn't have much. I think I had a couple with CCI mini mags. But that's one of the concerns about this is that either the hammer doesn't have enough force, and just by feeling it when I work it manually with a slide off, I think it does. Maybe if the firing pin were just a little bit longer, I'd get better strikes onto the cartridge, and therefore maybe fewer misfires. But this gun is certainly accurate enough, all the way out to 50 yards. And again, I'll roll some range footage in for that. And I also put the suppressor on it, did some left-handed shooting while holding a camera with the right hand. And hey, this gun worked all the way out to 50 yards. My grandkids shot it, and they shot it well out to 50 yards with a suppressor on it. And even at 12 yards, it was accurate as could be on 3-inch steel plate. So really, really happy with the way this functions. Go for 50. Left-handed, one hand. See what happens. How about the 16-inch? Can I do that? All right. 12-inch below it. Pressing my luck here. All right. 10-inch. White with a black center. I don't know. All right, left hand, one hand. Let's try 8-inch below it. Now, there we go. 6-inch, maybe. That'll be pure luck. Okay, that was pure luck. Sig 322 with CCI mini mag, target rounds, 40 grain. Solid point, and let's just see what it'll do on the top target out there at 50 yards. Just let's see what it'll do, what I can do with it. Alright, probably shooting faster than I should. Yeah, scattered one a little bit. Try a couple more here. I pulled that one. Yeah, shooting too fast and scattering them. All right. The Sig 322. I've been shooting this a lot. I actually really enjoy shooting this little 22. It has been working quite well for me. The question is, how does it compare to what was before this my favorite Taurus, and that is the Taurus TX22. There's a lot of similarities, but boy, there's a lot of differences between these two. Big difference, well, we'll talk about price in just a little bit, but size, huge difference. The Taurus, of course, has a 5¼ inch barrel, whereas the Sig has a 4-inch barrel. Makes the Sig a little shorter. Width-wise, they are, if I get the camera to go back in to focus it, width-wise, they're pretty comparable. Looks like the slide is just a hair wider on the Sig than it is on the Taurus. The big difference between these two guns is weight. About 17.1 ounces unloaded without the optic for the Sig 322. About 23 ounces again without the optic for the Taurus TX22 competition. Now, Taurus has 3 models of this. Now, you can get the regular one without the optic cut on it, and you can also get, in addition to the optic competition model, you can get one that has a compensator on the end. And three models versus right now only one for the Sig. Again, the competition Taurus and the Sig 322 are both optics ready, but difference in how that works too, because the optic on the Sig is attached to the slide, as is quite typical of many guns these days. The optic on the Taurus, however, is attached to the barrel, which is a little interesting variation. That way it doesn't change any of the reciprocating mass on the slide, although you certainly can't co-witness the sights on the Taurus. And of course, with the Sig, when you take the optics plate or the sight plate off to put the optic on it, then you lose your rear sight. But this Bul MS-1 does have a rear sight notch in it that is working okay. Both of these guns do have the adapter on the barrel for a suppressor. Replace the adapter with a just a thread protector, and that sits then flush with the slide. Both of those are the same way. A little different ergonomics on the Taurus than you see on the Sig. The Sig grip seems to be kind of a compromise between the 365 XL and the 320. Kind of halfway in between on those. The frame is not interchangeable with any of the other Sig models. Both of these do have a manual safety, and it is ambidextrous on both guns. Ambidextrous slide stop lever on the Sig, but not on the Taurus. Again, a little heavier gun on the Taurus. I still like shooting it, but right now the Sig has become my favorite. And oh, again, fiber optic front sight, of course, on the Sig, and just a plain white dot front sight on the Taurus. I'm going to shoot both of them here side by side just a little bit, just to get a feel of how the difference is. But right now, this little lighter Sig is so far is becoming my favorite gun. I think we're going to set it up just for 12 yards, just run the plates once. Another difference that we haven't mentioned yet is the magazine difference. For the Sig, it is a 20-round polymer mag. For the Taurus, it's only a 16-round polymer mag, and yet they are both just about the same size. All right, John had some Norma X-Tac ammunition loaded up in his. I'm going to end up having to shoot his because all of his mags are loaded, so I'm going to have to shoot it and refill it with something. I've got CCI 40 grain mini mag target rounds loaded up in the Sig. It seems to be what it's like. Let's play a little bit at 12 yards. All right, Taurus first, starting with the 8-inch over there on the left, and I got to bring the dot up because this has a Swamp Fox Liberty on it. Grip angle seems to be a little different. It's a little, I got to work at it finding the dot here. All right, the plates themselves. Almost flinched it off. All right, that's the Taurus. Let's bring in the Sig 322 and got the dot turned on. 20 rounds loaded up in the Sig mag. And let's just run the same routine and just see how it works here, starting with the 8-inch on the left. How about the little ones? It's got a little more felt recoil, but again, it's 17 ounces versus 23 ounces, so it's going to have a little bit more recoil. But it seems to work really well compared to that. Actually, I won't say compared to the Taurus. One other big difference I didn't talk about is price. The Sig, I believe, has an MSRP of $399.99, so call it $400. I saw some of these going right after they came out. They were going on the auction sites for like $850. Really crazy. They're now settled down to about $450 to $500, which is getting a little closer. I believe the Taurus has an MSRP of somewhere around $533, at least in this configuration. Again, that's without the optic. And they're going for, right now, probably in that same general vicinity. You're not getting much of a discount on these in this day and age here in mid-2022. So still a little bit of difference. So you're going to pay a little bit more now still for the Taurus than you are if you look around for the Sig. So they're different guns. They're both just as reliable, both just as enjoyable to shoot. All right, with the Sig 322, let's just reach out to 50 yards. Start with the silver gong on the left, of course. White 16-inch high right green center. 12-inch below it, white with a red center. Well, there we go. 10-inch in the center, white with a black center there in the high middle. 8-inch below it, white with a red. 6-inch between the 8-inch and the gong. All right. Sig 322 with the Bul Optics MS-1 red dot on it. Loaded up with 20 rounds of mini mag hollow point varmint rounds, 36 grain. Let's take it over to 25. 6-inch plate there to the right of the black silhouette. No-brainer. Head flipper on the silhouette's not going to move much at all, but it moved a little bit. All right, down below that 6, just a little below and to the right, kind of buried in the weeds, is a spinner, a white spinner on top of a black one. Let's see if it'll spin. Alright, it moved. Not that time. Or that time. Alright, there's some red plates buried in the weeds to the left of that. Again, a little 2 inchers. See if I can get them here at 25 yards. Start with the right. Got one. 2 of them. Didn't stay up. Gonna try it again. There we go. And that's all the ammo I have. Alright, still 2 inches, 25 yards. Hey, I can live with that. Alright, so you've seen the range footage, and you've seen what it does for me, at least. Again, this is a sample of one with just one person, in my opinion. Nothing statistically analyzed here other than just my gut reaction, and how the Bul Armory site works on it to get the footage on installing this will be at the end with a couple of issues I had. So is it a home run or is it something less? And again, for me, it's a home run, although it's not an out-of-the-park home run, but with a couple of caveats. So number one, I'd certainly like to see some alignment lugs on the optic area. And again, it's been fine for a 22. The sight's not, the optic isn't moving around, but it would be nice if there was something, lugs to keep it aligned instead of just relying on the tension of the screws. And number two, I'd like to see the firing pin, as I mentioned earlier, have just a little longer, so it would get better strikes on the on those cartridge cases, 22 rimfire with the problems. But hey, so far it is my favorite polymer 22 pistol. In fact, it doesn't quite knock my Browning Buckmark out of top spot for 22, but it is pretty close. So again, if you want to see the optic installation, stick around for the next 3 minutes and 50 seconds or something after the end of this. Otherwise, thanks for dropping in. Sig 322 with the optics plate off. There are no alignment lugs. RMSC type optic goes on here, and it does fit the contours. There's of course nothing on the bottom of the optic to align on it. Same thing with the Romeo Zero, although the Romeo Zero seems to have less movement in there. Let's try the Bul MS-1. M3 by 0.5 screws to hold it down. These did not come with the optic. Let's see how they work there. Now it's not fully tightened down yet. However, there is, if you can see it here or not, there is side-to-side play. Quite a bit of side-to-side play, actually, with the optic in the optic cut, because there's no alignment lugs. The only thing that's going to keep it from going sideways is torquing those screws down. It's not going to go forward or backward because it does fit in the cutout okay. You can see there's just a little bit of play in the optic itself because the screws are in the rear, batteries in the front with a little bit of pressure on it. I don't have them torqued down yet. When I had the Romeo Zero sight on there, it's a plastic body and said torque it down to 8 inch-pounds. Well, my wrench doesn't go that low, and it seemed like the more I kept tightening it, the more it was just pushing into the plastic. So I didn't dare go too far. This, all right, I'm going to try to get it somewhat centered here. Still got just a little bit of movement, even though the screws are getting tightened down a little. All right, so we are going to get it as centered as possible and then torque it down to 10 inch-pounds. Right now, it's quite a bit to the left of center, and you can see there's a little more overhang on the left side than there is on the right, so the optic is not centered. I'll try to center it here just a little more. Again, the only thing that's keeping that centered is the screws themselves. Alright, that is fairly well centered dot-wise. We will torque those down to the proper ends. Okay, the dot's fairly well centered. It's a fair amount. It looks like fairly even on what little bit of overhang I have on each side, and the dot is fairly well centered now over the front post. All right, we're going to tighten those down and give it a try.